Rent versus own, which is the best option in today's market? This is a question that has been on the rise lately, and I know that there's more people out there who are asking a similar question, but I know that there's a piece that's missing to that question. It's not as which is the best option in today's market, it's which is the best option in today's market for myself. One thing that will just, always be very constant when someone is buying a home, especially their first home, is that they're going to have their parents or friends or families, coworkers, mentors, or maybe even people they really don't know. They're going to have an opinion about their personal experience with this subject of rent versus own and what pertained to them. But what pertains to you? And the purpose of this video today is really just to get you a better education. Our goal here is to leave people better than we found them. And we want to make sure you're looking through all the details so you know how to make the best decision for yourself. There's pros and cons. There's good and bad things to renting versus owning. And you want to make sure that you kind of want to know what the good and the bad and the ugly are on all of these. Do you know your numbers? Do you really know the numbers, or are you just looking at it from a month-to-month perspective? If it's, hey, I'm going to just pick the lowest payment, then you're going to go with whatever the market is dictating at that time. Does that really, when you look at the long-term numbers, which one best fits for some of the goals that you may have? Do you have some wealth creation ideas? Have you thought about adding real estate to that wealth creation idea? How may this impact that? I think those are important things to just make sure you understand. What are things to consider to make sure that those things are applying to your decision base? Are you looking through all these items? My name is Matthew Thorne. I'm a senior loan officer. Happy to share some of the insights on the pros and cons, the numbers, and some things to consider when you're making this decision between rent versus own. Okay, so we're going to kind of start with some of the pros and cons between renting and owning. So let's start with renting. Here are some of the pros. When you're renting, you'll sign a year lease, or you're going to have a fixed payment for 12 months. Also, there's no maintenance cost. If something breaks in the home, the air conditioning or the plumbing goes wrong or the toilet needs fixing, you don't have those maintenance costs. That's going to be on the landlord. You can pick up and move when you're needed. If it's my year lease is up and I want to go, I can just pick up and go. I don't need to sell anything. I don't need to do anything. I ended my lease and I'm going to move out. Technically, it can be more cost efficient. Based on my structure, I don't need a whole lot. Maybe I just need a small place to kind of rent. Maybe it's more cost efficient. Maybe the rents are lower in your area. That could definitely be a benefit. And there's less financial responsibility to actually get started in a lease. Okay, we looked at the pros. Now let's look at the other side of this. Here are the cons, or maybe the downsides of renting. Traditionally, when your lease is up, you will have a rent increase. This is probably anywhere from about 3 to 5% of what your current rent payment is. When the lease ends, it doesn't guarantee you get to renew. You may have to move because the landlord has decided to sell the property, doesn't want to extend your lease, has other needs for the property, so you may have to move without really having any consideration in that. When your rent is due, it's due, and there's really no wealth accumulation in that. You're technically probably really paying somebody else's mortgage. And the last one is there's really no pride of ownership. You're not really going to put a lot of effort and upkeep into a rental property that you don't own, especially because it's not yours. Okay, so we've looked at some pros and cons to renting. Let's look at some pros and cons to owning. There are some tax advantages that have come in with owning a home. Mortgage interest is actually tax deductible. Now, it does vary on your particular income situation, so you want to talk to your CPA or tax preparer. Real estate traditionally appreciates over time. If you just kind of go and do some research on home appreciation over the last 100 years, it has been quite consistent over time that it appreciates. It can provide passive income. Maybe you stay in this home for a couple of years and turn it into a rental property. You might be able to have somebody else not only pay the mortgage payment, but actually give you some cash flow. There's pride of home ownership. When you own a home, you're going to put more effort into that. It is your asset. It is something that is yours. And then you have a fixed payment for 30 years in a lot of instances. A 30-year fixed, your principal and interest payment is fixed for 360 months. Now, there will be increases to taxes and insurance, and depending on the loan program, you might have mortgage insurance fall off after time. Now, here are some downsides or some cons to owning. The liquidity issues and equity. What we mean by liquidity issues is that it's not easy to take the equity out of a home. Typically, you'll either have to sell that home or you'll have to complete a refinance transaction or a home equity line of credit transaction to get that equity out. And you're looking probably at a minimum of 30 to maybe 90 days to have that happen. It can take time to sell a home. Selling a home, depending on market conditions and what kind of price that you want to get for it, again, that could take you some time. When you sell a home, there is closing costs and sales commissions involved. When you're a seller, you're going to have some title fees that you'll pay. Traditionally, you're going to pay an owner's title policy for the person buying your home, and then you're going to have sales commissions. You're going to pay anywhere from 4 to 6% for the real estate agents to sell your home. And then there is cost of maintenance. Now, that might be something to kind of go and Google in your area or kind of do some research on, is what is the cost per square foot for maintenance for a home in this type of neighborhood. The Veterans Administration has a loan qualification on their VA loans that takes this into account. They use a number of 14 cents per square foot. Okay, in this section, we're going to go over the numbers. What you're looking at here is a screenshot of a presentation tool we use called a total cost analysis, and it's a great way to put some things side by side so you can see a nice comparison. There is a link to the full report right here, and we'll leave one in the description box below. Okay, looking at this summary screen, we're going to see 4 columns. The first column is going to show you a rent option, and then we're going to go through 3 purchase options with FHA, conventional, and down payment assistance. You'll see 4 lines in yellow. Let's concentrate on those for a minute. So what we want to make sure we're starting off with is a comparison that is an apple to apples comparison. We don't want to go grab a 1-bedroom apartment and look at the rent and then compare it to a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath house, because that's just not the same type of property. Most likely going to have somewhat of a difference on the monthly payment. So I'm going to assume that we're looking for a home to rent that's 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, or to buy. So I live in Maricopa County in Arizona. I went and did some research in my area, and rents for a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath home were anywhere from about $1,800 to about $2,600 a month. So I used something in the middle there at $2,200. Traditionally, when you rent a property like that, they will ask you to pick up a renter's insurance policy for some additional protection. That's going to run you about $40 a month. So I'm going to use a total rent payment of $2,240 a month. Now we have the 3 next options are going to be purchase options. FHA requires a 3.5% down payment. Conventional requires a 3% down payment. And there is a down payment assistance program where we can finance the down payment. Now, when we look at that top line in yellow, you'll see that the FHA option, the total payment, that's principal and interest, property taxes, homeowners insurance, and mortgage insurance, is $2,785. It's $2,815 on conventional and $3,107 on the down payment assistance. But I want you to concentrate on the second line in yellow because many people do not pay attention to this. You are making a principal and interest payment on a loan. So every month you're gaining principal or equity in that property. So on the FHA option, that would be around $324 a month, $305 a month on conventional, and $354 on the down payment assistance program. So we want to look at what the true cost of that mortgage is, which is going to be the interest, taxes, and insurance, and mortgage insurance. So when we look at that third line, that is the true cost for those 3 loans compared to the rent. It varies anywhere from about $220 from the FHA program, $270 on the conventional program, and about $513 on the down payment assistance program. This last line in yellow is going to show you cash to close. Traditionally, you don't have any kind of closing cost or down payment amount that you're going to have for a rent. You may have to put up a security deposit, which you may or may not get back, but I just left that at $0. It's about $13,830 on option 1 for the FHA, just under $12,000 on the conventional option, and $1,437 on the down payment assistance program. Now, we can ask the seller to help pay for some closing costs here. We can also have family member gift us funds. And one thing that many people also overlook is that they may be able to borrow against their 401k. Many employers have special provisions that are written in their summary plan descriptions or terms of withdrawal on their 401k agreements that allow you to borrow in special circumstances for a primary residency. Many people get concerned that they may be taking value out of the market. Traditionally, the 401k balance should stay invested at the same amount. You're just borrowing against it and repaying it. Your service provider will have a lot better information. In this next section, I want to go over the charts. You'll see one in blue, one in orange, and one in green. The blue we kind of covered with the differentials on the rent payments. I think a real eye-opener is here on the next one, which is rent versus principal paid. Now, if I was paying $22.40 a month on rent, and taking into consideration I'm probably going to have a rent increase each year when I renew my lease, I'm going to spend almost $84,000 in rent. Whereas on the loan programs, I'm going to gain anywhere from maybe $12,000 to $14,000 in principal in those first 3 years just by making that standard payment. We want to finish with this chart in green, which is going to show you your net worth in 3 years. Traditionally, properties, real estate will appreciate over time. So we're just going to assume a 4% appreciation. Based on a 4% appreciation, your initial down payment and your principal payments that you make each month, you could have anywhere from $54,000 to almost $70,000 in net equity in that home versus $0 in rent and an almost $84,000 expenditure. This is where you want to make sure you understand how the numbers play for you. And the last thing we really want to talk about are just basic things to consider. These are important, just idealistic pieces that you want to make sure you just kind of check it off to make sure that that's not going to be a game changer if you're going to decide to rent or own. The first one is, are you going to be in this location or around this area for a considerable amount of time? I live in Phoenix, Arizona. If I was going to buy a property, then within maybe 6 to 12 months, I was going to move to Seattle. How does that impact me? Am I going to be able to take care of that property? Is that going to be a benefit or a burden based on that notion that I know I'm going to be leaving? Changes in employment. This could be from being relocated to changes in income. Hey, I'm thinking about getting into this commission structure over a base salary. My income may go up and down. Is that something I want to consider? Does that apply to any of these decision-making pieces? And the last piece is really, what are my risk tolerances too? Am I in a position where, I can feel like I can take more risk or not? There are great wealth creation pieces that you can lay with a foundation in real estate, which will build that over time. But how does that apply to your situation? These are just questions I think that are important to go through when you're looking at the pros and cons, knowing your numbers, and then just, other things to make sure you're walking through. I think if you walk through all these items, you're going to feel a lot better about which decision is best for you between rent and own.